And they are just concepts. They are just ideas, really. And what we're talking about isn't a concept or an idea. Or I guess more clearly, you could say what we're talking about can't be contained by a concept, an idea, or a word. So these are just, I guess, pointers. So it's not about, the meeting isn't about learning anything. It doesn't actually fit in to any of the expectations that one would normally have joining a meeting about ideas like this. So we're not actually trying to change what is. It isn't about this becoming something. It isn't about you understanding or not understanding. It doesn't matter. What we're, I guess you could say the suggestion or what we're pointing to is that what is, meaning what seems to be, is the Alpha and the Omega, is the beginning and the end. That what is everything. There isn't anything else. Whatever arises, be it a thought about the past, a thought about the future, an emotion, a thought, sensations, whatever arises, whatever seems to be happening, is what is. Now, what is isn't now. Now is the experience that what is real. What is isn't real, nor is it unreal. So you can tell we're already at the limit of concepts. Because if it's neither real nor unreal, there is no way to contain it. There's no way to reflect upon it. There's no way to conceive of it. That being the case, the whole experience that something needs to happen, something needs to be found, or that something's missing, which is simply the suggestion that there's something else that isn't what is being pointed out as being illusory. It's still what is, but it's an illusory experience that arises as what is. That illusory experience you could call me, I am, the self, the knower, the center. That's the experience of it. And that experience is the experience of separation. That experience I am conscious, I know, I am aware, is the experience of separation. And that experience of separation has particular qualities about it, such as that the appearance has meaning and purpose, such as the appearance is happening to me, has something to do with me, is my responsibility, or I am in the appearance having a life. Part of that is the experience that what's happening matters. That there is a right and a wrong way for this to appear. And that it's up to me to be good, to be right. It's like a straitjacket. a straitjacket of need. And that straitjacket of need, of being right and good and bad, is the experiential idea or concept that I am responsible, and if I act correctly, rightly, I will be able to find what seems to be missing. Now, that whole description is illusory. It all builds on this appearance being a part of a real continuum with a real past, a real present, and a real future. It's not happening. Like now, it's not happening. Now, I understand if it seems to be happening there, that's what's happening. That is what is. But there's no reality behind this being a real continuum. So the next question would be, is if I am stuck, or I'm having the experience of being stuck in this real continuum, which is completely illusory, what do I do to fix it? What do I do to see what Jim's talking about? What do I do to find the end of that need of this to becoming something? There is nothing that could be done to make this not everything. So there's nothing that could be done to make it everything. That experience that something needs to happen and that it's up to you to do it is illusory. The experience that something needs to happen is exactly where the needlessness of the appearance hides. It hides in that experience something needs to happen. The illusion has no depth beyond that experience that something needs to happen. That is the beginning and end of that experience of separation. Something needs to happen. So the question, what do I need to do, is that illusory experience that something needs to happen. Nothing happens. Nothing will ever happen. So the meeting isn't one of hope, of you finding something. And the meeting isn't one of this becoming what's longed for. It really points out the hopelessness, the hopeless situation that the individual finds itself in, of trying to become something. There isn't anything to become because there isn't anything going anywhere. There is only what seems to be happening. It's already completely unconditionally free. It's already whole, needless, pointless. So now I'm going to tell you a little story. Just to sort of, let's see what you make of it. I heard this from somewhere, probably from Alan Watts. But it's an old Zen story about a teacher who, whenever he was asked a question about what the truth is, this isn't about truth. Whenever he was asked, he would always just raise up one finger, of course, pointing to the reality that there's only what is. There happened to be a young boy in the ashram, or whatever you want to call it, who then picked up the habit of whenever any question about what this is would come up, he would just raise up one finger. And this teacher then asked him once, so what is the truth of this? And the little boy raised up a finger, and the teacher cut it off. And And of course, there was a big tumult, a big thing going on, and the little boy runs away and whatever. And when all the dust settles, the teacher then goes up to the boy and says, "So what is the truth of this? What is the truth of what is?" And the little boy goes up to raise up one finger, and there's no finger there. And it's done. And that's the message. There is no finger. There is no pointing. There is nowhere to go. It's already done. So that's the introduction. So the meeting yesterday, and whatever seemed to have happened, whatever you remember or don't remember, or whatever seemed to move or not to move, or loosen or not loosen, tighten up, is this. There's an apparent yesterday. So we're not saying yesterday didn't happen. But what we are saying is yesterday is this, appearing as yesterday. And so in that way, this doesn't actually change. It doesn't really move. It appears to, but it's simply this. Now, what that means is that this is everything. This is, at the same time, anything. So this is all possibilities, appearing as this. It's unconditionally free already. So this being all possibilities appearing as this is not supposed to suggest, I'm not suggesting that there are other possibilities. Because there aren't. There isn't any potential left untapped to become something else. This is all of it. But there's no need for it to be. It's not becoming anything. It's not trying to be what it is. There's no need for it to be as it appears. And I'm not sure if you get it, but the sense there is an unconditional freedom. Now, for the reason this meeting is happening is it's a response to an experience that says that this is conditionally free. It's free as it relates to me, as I understand freedom. The conditional freedom doesn't like that this has no need to be what it is. This conditional freedom doesn't like that this is everything. It doesn't like that there isn't a real yesterday that turned into a real today, because that gives you no hope of you ever getting what we're talking about here. There's only real hope of you getting what we're talking about here if yesterday turned into today, which means there's a possibility of tomorrow. Hope is always tomorrow. Hope is always somewhere else. Hope is the worst thing in the world. It's the same as knowing. These things seem to be something that give. I have hope, I know something, but really it's a loss. Hope is the loss of what is, because what's hoped for is what's going to happen tomorrow. Knowing is the loss of what is, because it's a solid need to know. Knowing isn't the cessation of the need to know. Knowing is the beginning of the need to know. Counterintuitively, unknowing is the end of the need to know. And what we're talking about, or what we're pointing to, is that this is unknowing already. So you won't get it because you couldn't get it. Anything you can get is something else, is going to land in the basket of hope or knowing. And the suggestion is, this is what's truly longed for. This is already the unconditional love, unconditional freedom that's truly longed for, beyond the need of hope, beyond the need of knowing, beyond the need of becoming. So this isn't waiting for you to know what this is. This isn't waiting for a shift. This just simply isn't about you. Which is a good thing, because there isn't a you. That total experience is an illusion. And it's easy in some ways to sort of see the edges of what you think you know. Now I've lost my train of thought. William put his hand up, and I thought, oh, William, hey. And I don't know what I was going to say anymore. Oh, well, it's all the same thing. There's just what's happening, and it's already free. And there's nothing that needs to happen for that to be the case. The individual always wants to have nothing that becomes something. So when he hears this concept, it always separates nothing from everything. Nothing that appears. And they aren't actually separate. So it'll say there's nothing, but how can there be movement if nothing's happening? But that's nothing moving. See, this is not, the appearance for the individual is real, and therefore there's a real continuum arising out of the position I am here, and out of that arises continuum that all relates to me. That's just a dream. There is no substantiality to the appearance. So it's a paradox. This is nothing appearing. That doesn't make sense. Nothing moving, nothing happening. Well, what I notice when we talk about this together is that the individual is having an experience, and that's where the questions are coming from, that there's really something happening as a part of a continuum of its life, where it feels like it's in the driver's seat, driving this really important experience that it's having. And it's serious. You know, it's serious, it's earnest, it's not a joke, it's about them, and they're driving this bus, they're driving this thing called my life. I'm in the driver's seat of my life, and I'm having to make decisions. And I know I do, because in the past I've made decisions. I've made the decision to be here, and I'm making the decision to move on into the next one. And I either make the decision to ask a question or not to ask a question. And all of it is about me finding something. All of it is about there's something happening. Either it's happening or it needs to be happening. And it's about me. And that's what it is. And it's really quite complex. My life is, complex isn't the right word, it's complicated. It's very complicated because it's all mixed up with how I feel and what I think and what I feel or believe this appearance is about, and about how all that works together. And I'm in the middle of working all of that out all of the time. And that experience, that working it out, now from that, let's just say if there's a me listening, an individual who understands, who sees themselves reflected in what's being said here, they'll be saying, yeah, that's true. Now, when I'm talking, what's obvious, or what's when there's a reaction, a response to a question which is reflected in what I've just described, what's obvious to me, or obvious, is that there's just this happening. There's just these words that nobody's saying them. It's obvious nobody's saying these words. And there's just a response or not. And that's the end of it. And the whole complex story that's being shared is simply this, appearing as this complex story. And there's a total understanding over here, or a reflection, that there's this huge package that's being carried along of all this complex, complicated experience that's coming along, and the effort to work that out. And from here, it's obvious two things. One, that's just this, appearing as this experience that's complex, complicated is a better word, complicated experience. And that it can't be worked out. That the effort to work it out is the need to work it out. And that what's really longed for is what is already. That's what's obvious here. And that's where the response comes from. The question is, what do I do? Where do I go? What does it mean? How do I figure it out? What's my life? What's the meaning? What's the purpose? Now I'm special. This is what's happening for me. And the response is, I understand. I get it. That's what's happening. But that's this. And there isn't that need in it. And there isn't anything that's ever going to happen to take away that need. Because that need is already illusory. It's already superficial. There's no way to let go of it, because letting go of it is the same energy. There's no way to figure it out. There's no way to move to the left of it or to the right of it, because that movement, that experience, is the same thing. And it is that big package, that big complicated package, that makes this appear as just a part of the story of me. Rather than what's obvious and is undeniable, it is already all of it. There isn't anything outside. But that experience of the story of me hides this almost completely, as almost a negligent part of my complicated story. This has absolutely no value to me, really, because there's nothing in it for me to find. There's nowhere for me to go. There's nothing hidden already. And that's actually the message. There isn't anything hidden. There isn't anything to find. Nothing is truly lost. There are no decisions that need to be made, and no one that can make them. What's longed for is what's happening. The individual is pauselessly reaffirming its position. So it will go back into all of its memories and go back through them all the time, thinking about them, good and bad, and all the rest of it. It has an experiential relationship with emotions, which it will reject or pull closer to itself, which keeps sort of things moving on. So there's a lot of activity keeping its understanding of who it is and what it is together. Now, when there's no one left interested in knowing what this is, then that rummaging around and all of those things no longer happens. And so the whole construct, the whole concept, the whole conditioning, all of that, no one's left picking through it and trying to figure it out anymore. So the whole thing just sort of relaxes, becomes easier. And so as a general thing, all of that is in some way forgotten. Of course, it's not. I mean, I could tell you about where I was born and all that stuff, but the whole contracted need that sort of imbues that whole thing is no longer there, no longer holding it together. There's nothing holding this together anymore. That's it. The me is actually seeking something for itself. It just wants more and more and more. So the me, if there is one, there isn't one, but let's say there is one, is a contracted energy which is saying, not this, what's next? And that's just a function of it. It's always looking for the next experience. It wants to add to itself. It feels like there's an emptiness or a sense of loss, and it feels like if it knew enough, if it had enough experience, it could then fill up that sense of something missing.